Hi everyone, welcome to day 5 of our QA bootcamp. In today's video, we'll walk through what happens after the requirement phase are finalized and how the story progresses in JIRA. So we'll also deep dive into the sprint process like daily stand-up and what is the first task which QA should be performing. So let's understand. So once you are done with the backlog grooming and the planning part, then your actual sprint starts. So in JIRA, you create a board and then over there you add all the tickets. I show you in the JIRA I have created a sample Scrum board over here. So once all the stories are groomed, the sprint is started. So which is generally started by your Scrum Master or your PM, and all the stories are added to the new sprint. For example, this sprint name is Sprint 2. So all the stories will be added over here and it will be displayed under the first column, which is to do. This marks the start of actual work on the story. So here you can see the stories in to do, which means it can be picked up by the development team. Next is when we enter the sprint phase, a sprint is basically a set period, which is typically of 1 to 4 weeks. In most of the organizations, it is generally 15 days, but it can vary from 1 week to 4 weeks. And during this phase, the specific task and stories will be worked on. For example, these stories, so team will be working on the stories which will be there in the to-do state. And during this time, the team will focus on completing the stories which are planned for that sprint. So first step you understood, the stories are added on the board and we can see from the to-do state. So let's say your planning and grooming is done today. From tomorrow onwards, what will happen? So every day there will be a daily scrum, or you can call it daily stand-up meeting, which is a short meeting in which everyone quickly updates on what they have worked on previous day, what they'll be working on today, and if there are any blockers which they are facing. So that's the main agenda of this daily stand-up. And these stand-ups are really important because it keeps your team aligned, which task you're working on, and if there is any blocker or you're blocked by some other team, so that your whole team is aligned on the same page and they know who is working on which task. Now, coming back to this board, let's understand the workflow over here. So once your story is ready to be picked up by developers, what they can do, they can just go to the story and change the workflow over here. So now it is in to-do state. You can change the status from here, from to-do to dev in progress. And then you can change the assignee also. So in the team, we know there are multiple people work. For example, you have 4 developers and 2 QAs. Each of them will pick the story from this board and they will change the status. And once the dev is done, so what they will do? So they should be moving it to the next state. So this is QA ready over here. So these workflows, you can configure it. It actually depends on your project also, how you want to configure. Sometimes it's just 3 columns. Sometimes there are proper different columns for each state. And once the story is in QA, in the QA ready phase, QA from your team, they can pick the story. For example, you have 2 QAs working. So you will see all the tickets which are in QA ready state. And then what you can do, you can assign it to yourself and then move into QA in progress. For example, this one. For example, there are 2 QAs in the team. One is QA and QA QA will come and then will change the status to QA in progress. And then the QA2 can also do the same thing. So over here, we can see it is assigned to whom and it is in which status. And every day in the daily stand-up, we refer the board and we see stories or tasks are under which state. Now you have picked the story for testing. Now as a QA, what's the first thing you should do? The initial step is to perform a smoke testing. Smoke testing means to ensure basic functionality of the application is working as expected. For example, we have this open card registration page. Instead of verifying all the functionality, you should be first verifying the page is getting opened or not. So this build is stable or not. So that means you can hit your API and verify it is giving you 200 OK or not, or you can just open the page and see it is loading. So that is the first step. So once your smoke test pass, then you can proceed with other testing. You can perform your regression testing, and this can be done either manually or if you have automated it, you can do that also. So either ways, manual or automation, you can first perform smoke testing and then continue with the regression testing. You should verify the existing functionality is working fine or not. So after testing it either manually or by automation, what you can do, you can move the status done to next state. So over here, the next state is ready for prod. So what we can do, we will move it to ready for prod. So that means now this build can be deployed to production. So in some organization, it is done by DevOps. So it depends on organization to organization. In some organization, it is done by DevOps. In some, it is done by developers. And in some, it is also done by QA. So whoever is responsible, you can configure the column name as per that. Then you can move it to the right state. So this is how the story is moved in Jira into the different states. So it starts from to do, then it is dev in progress. So we know which developer is working and how many days it is taking. And then it will be ready for QA. Then you can pick your story from ready for QA, and then it will QA in progress, ready for production. And then once it is deployed to production, you can move it to deploy to prod. So this is our end-to-end workflow in Jira. So once the story is moved, that means the story has passed QA and is ready for release. And once it is moved to production, that means it is deployed to production. So that's a wrap for day 5. We have covered what happens after the requirement phase, how the story progresses in Jira, and the QA process from smoke testing to other testing types. So if you find this video helpful, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel for the more QA insights, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.